If Ada borrows you money, even your shadow will start crying. Nobody in Umuoko village forgot the first day Adaego, the woman people now call the stingiest alive, arrived with her small wooden box and silent footsteps. Children stopped playing suwe. Market women paused. Adaego was not poor. In fact, her wrapper were always neat, her slippers never dusty, and her gold earrings shone like morning sun on water. But if you ask her for even one kobo, she will look at you the way a cat looks at a lizard, calm, unbothered, and ready to walk away. People swore that if rain was falling and she had an umbrella, she would rather use it to cover her goat than share it with you. Some said she once cut a piece of soap into 7 tiny cubes just to bath for 3 months without buying another. Others believe she counted each grain of rice before cooking. But Adaego was not always like that. Long ago, before her name became a warning, she was just a girl with soft eyes and a bright laugh. Her father, Okoro, was a palm wine tapper. Her mother, Nneka, sold beans cake at the roadside. They were not rich, but they were kind. And Adaego trusted kindness like she trusted air. Then one raining season, everything changed. Her father gave his life savings to a man named Eze, who promised to help him buy a land in the city. Eze smiled with all his teeth, swore on his father's grave, and even clapped his hands twice like a pastor that he wouldn't cheat him. He took the money and vanished. No money, no land. Food became smaller. Laughter died in the house. Adaego watched her mother squeeze stew out of yesterday's pot water. She saw her father sit by the fire, holding his head in both hands, as if it was too heavy to carry. That night, she made a silent promise to herself. Nobody will ever see my kobo. From that day, something inside her heart turned into iron, cold and locked. If generosity was a door, Adaego wielded it shut with fire. Years passed. One afternoon, a girl named Ifunanya ran into Adaego's compound crying. Her mother was sick and needed money for herbs. She knelt in the dust and begged Adaego. Adaego didn't blink. She simply pointed at the gate and said, "Cry outside. Your tears cannot pay me back." Ifunanya left with empty hands and a broken voice. But that night, Adaego could not sleep. She kept hearing a whisper inside her mind. Not loud, not gentle, just stubborn. It asked one question over and over. What if someone had helped your father? She tossed, she turned, she pressed the pillow over her head. Still, the voice would not die. Adaego flung the pillow aside and sat up. Sleep refused to come, and the whispers in her mind was now rubbing her chest like stone on metal. She eased, stood from the bed, and lit her small kerosene stove. Maybe hot eba and egusi would quiet her mind. She placed a battered pot on the stove, poured in water, and waited for it to boil. But her eyes were heavy. She sat on the wooden chair near the window just to rest her back for 1 minute. The night breeze touched her face. The birds outside were singing. Before she knew it, her eyelids dropped like iron gate. She slept. She didn't know when the boiling water dried up. She didn't see when the bottom of the pot turned black like charcoal. She didn't hear the small flame licking the oil stain around the stove. She didn't smell the first thin snake of smoke rising to the roof. What woke her up wasn't the fire. It was shouting. Adaego, Adaego, open your door. She jumped up, confused. Her throat was dry, her eyes stunned. Smoke had already filled the room. The curtains near the stove was on fire, burning fast like dry paper. She coughed and ran to the door, but she couldn't see well. The flames were spreading across the wall, licking the mat, climbing towards the roof. Voices shouted from outside, "Break the door! Use water! Mba! The fire don't enter ceiling, no!" Before she could reach the latch, the door burst open with a loud crack. 3 men rushed in. Obinna the carpenter, Old Maazi Owoke, and Ebuka the hunter. None of them ever received one kobo from Adaego in their life. In fact, she once refused to give Ebuka salt when he was cooking, when he realized his salt had finished. But here they were, inside the smoke, pulling her by the arm. "Madam, come out. I can carry myself," she argued, coughing hard. "Carry yourself inside fire," Obinna snapped and dragged her out. Outside, more villagers had gathered with buckets, calabash, and even broken tins. Some had rushed from sleep. Some still had wrappers tied under their armpits. The night sky glowed red as flames climbed the roof. Women screamed. Children cried. Men ran back and forth, pouring water, beating the fire with palm frond, shouting instructions before waiting for answers. Somebody yelled, "Remove your things, oh!" Before she could blink, 2 girls ran into her burning house and came back with her wooden box, her savings, her wrapper, her father's old shirt. Another person dragged out her mother's mortar and pistol. Somebody else saved her rifle mat. They walked as if the house belonged to them. Adaego just stood there, shivering, though the fire was hot. Each time a flame rolled, her stomach jumped. Every time someone called her name, shame pricked her skin. Why were they helping her? Why didn't they walk past and leave her to burn? Had she not turned her back when others begged? Had she not counted her coins like a soldier guarding a king? The fire died. After almost 1 hour of shouting, running and sweating. The roof was half gone. The wall, black like burnt bread. Smoke still curled around the rooms. The villagers dropped their bucket and sat on stone, panting. Nobody asked for thanks. Nobody asked for money. Nobody insulted her. They only rested. Omalicha, the palm wine seller, handed Adaego a cup of cold water. Adaego collected it with shaking hands. Beside her, a young boy fanned her with a piece of cardboard. She tried to speak. Maybe, thank you, maybe leave me alone. She didn't even know, but her voice failed. Maazi Owoke wiped his face and said softly, "Fire does not know stingy or generous. It just eats." Someone laughed weakly. Another person nodded. Then, like ants returning to their holes after rain, they stood up, one by one, and went back to their homes. No one waited for reward. Adaego sat alone on a stool, outside her damaged house. The night was quiet again, but her heart was not. Her savings were safe. Her clothes were safe. Even her cooking pot survived. All because of people she had never helped. People she had pushed away. People she looked at like strangers. She stared at the black ash on the floor. Her hands trembled. Something hot pressed behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. She did not sleep again that night. She sat until light began to touch the sky. She covered her face with both hands. For the first time in many years, her heart felt weak. Not weak like sickness, but weak like a wall that has cracked after many storms. Later that morning, as the villagers passed by and greeted quietly, she answered them. Some even asked if she needed a place to stay. She shook their hand, but her eyes softened without her knowing. By noon, the smoke smell had faded, but the memory did not. That evening, she swept the floor of her burnt kitchen and moved into a new place in the village. When she heard that Ifunaya's mother was sick, that the herbs were too expensive, before sunrise, she stood up, wore her gown, and went outside. The moon was still hiding in the sky. She walked quietly to Ifunaya's house. When she reached the compound, she heard someone coughing weakly inside. She didn't knock. She just dropped the money inside a clay pot so that nobody would see her. Then she tiptoed away like a thief. By morning, the news had already scattered across the village like harmattan fire. Ifunaya's mother is getting medicine. Oh. Somebody left money at their door. Who did it? Market women guessed. Children gossiped. Even the town crier pretended not to care, but his ears were wide open. Nobody suspected Adaego. That day at the stream, two women were whispering, one day, Adaego will die and even our spirit will hold its pocket. One said. The others laughed. Adaego was washing her wrapper near them. She heard every word, but this time, she did not feel anger. She only felt tired. That night, the whisper inside her spoke again, but this time, it was softer. Kindness does not make you foolish. It makes you human. The next week, a boy named Ebuka came to her store at the market. His school sandal had caught and his toes were peeping out like chicks from a shell. He asked if he could sweep her shop in exchange for a little money to buy glue. Old Adaego would have chased him away from her eyes alone, but she remembered her father's empty hands. She gave him a small job and paid him more than he expected. The boy almost danced. People started to notice small changes. She still locked her money box, but sometimes she opened it quietly when nobody was watching. With time, the villagers changed her name. Not loudly, not with a fist, just slowly, in their heart. They no longer call her Adaego, the stingiest. They began to call her something new, something she never expected. Adaego, the stone that melted.